3, 2. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to BenThere, Season 3, Episode 5. Got a good one for you guys today. This is a guy I've known for about a year and a half, 2 years. We actually were trying to figure that out prior to starting this, but I did his podcast. Now he's doing mine. This is a good thing. I want to get right to it. I'm going to let him introduce his second and third part of his name because we already butchered that when I was trying to say it. But Daniel, welcome to the show, my man. Why don't you tell everybody your full name so I don't embarrass myself and you. So go ahead, man. And then just tell us about you. Welcome to the show.
Sure. My full name is Daniel Bao Huy Nguyen-Phuoc. Bao Huy is my Vietnamese name. Daniel is my English name. I was born with both. Nguyen-Phuoc goes together. So yeah, that's it. My heritage is Vietnamese. My parents are Vietnamese. That's where the name came from. There's a story there, but anyway. I was born in Texas in 85, but then my dad, he was working for an oil company at the time that was exploring in Indonesia, so they moved him over there in 89, and then I basically grew up in Indonesia, in Jakarta, the capital city. My parents decided they put my sister and I in different schools for our first year to try out different schools, and decided, you know what, the British school would be a good plan. And then I stayed there till I was 18. And then I went back to the States, lived a couple of years in Michigan, eventually moved to Switzerland because my parents had moved there by then. Long story there. And then I got my degree in hotel management, worked in Florida for a couple of years, decided I don't have to live in the US if I don't want to, left again. And then went to backpacking around Asia for a while.
Nice.
Mostly in Malaysia, but around.
Malaysia.
Okay. Yeah. And that was about, that was the last time I was in the US, actually, which was 2011. And then so I left. And then I went back to Switzerland, went back to study for a while in Zurich mostly. And then ended up going back on the backpacking volunteering thing in Asia, mostly Malaysia again. I like Malaysia. And then back to Indonesia, started my English teaching career, and then pandemic hit, and now I am in Poland for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I got to be honest, I was going to say short story, long story. How did you end up in Poland? That's awesome, by the way. I'm curious. I've never had anybody on that lives in Poland, so that's good.
Well, that's the thing. Poland's a little underrated, I suppose, but it's one of those countries where it's like, everybody since I got here was like, why did you choose Poland? You could have chosen anywhere. It's like, technically, it's like, yeah, if I can choose anywhere, that includes Poland. So, yeah. But the short story is, and it was 2020. I was in Indonesia. I had actually originally planned to move to Malaysia. There were some plans for like some volunteering and then a new job maybe, but then everything got canceled. I got there and literally 2 days later, Malaysia announced lockdowns, what they call the MCO.
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, okay, well, I had the option to go back to Jakarta because I still have everything set up there. My apartment's still there, paid off till the end of the month, at least. Give it a couple of weeks, see if this pandemic will blow over. Obviously, it didn't. I was stuck in Indonesia for a while and then around July 2020, the Indonesian government announced, hey, this pandemic doesn't seem to be going away. You guys need to start buying, paying for visas to live here. And that was very complicated because they announced it on Instagram.
Oh, really?
No details. Yes, for real. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, you need to buy a visa. You need to leave in a month. It's like, leave where?
Yeah.
But basically, I didn't manage to handle that. But it was a mess. But I was thinking, I can't do this. This is obviously a problem. I can't sustain this. So at some point, I'm going to need to make some plans. So I found a job in Poland. A school in a smaller town outside of Warsaw offered me a job to work at their English teaching school, and I started off there. There's a story there regarding visas and stuff, but we can get into that later. After about a year of teaching there, it's just in a smaller town. I moved here to Wrocław, which is where I am now, and it's a bigger city. It's nice. It's pretty chill. So
nice. Had you ever been to Poland before? I'm assuming no.
Never been before. Yeah. No, I had Polish friends, and the small interactions that I had with Polish friends before was just generally like, your language seems really complicated and I'm never going to learn it. And then Look where I am.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how's your language there? How's your speaking ability? Is it?
Mówię trochę po polsku, which means I speak a little Polish. I'm on the for any Polish listeners, if you happen to have any, I'm on the Żabka level of Polish, and Żabka is the convenience store chain that is everywhere. So
I was gonna say that's like my Mandarin Chinese. I Idian, right? I can get by in a taxi and hold a little bit of a conversation, but I get that.
I'm not even on conversation level. I'm pretty much I can buy stuff, I can do some basic stuff, and I can understand a few bits here. Yeah. Like it's not, yeah. But to be fair, I haven't made any like conscious effort. It's all been passive. Yeah. I haven't taken any classes or anything like that. I maybe some Duolingo, but Duolingo doesn't count.
I get that.
So yeah,
yeah. Was that always the plan? I mean, you're a global guy, so was that always the plan to just end up overseas and keep going country to country, or what was your plan?
Pretty much. I mean, okay, what was my plan?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. No, like, so the original plan was back in 2011 when I left the States. I had lived there. I've been living in Florida for 2 years, and there's a complicated story with this, which was that I just never personally felt at home in the U.S. Yeah. And basically every time I went back there, I ended up wanting to leave. You know. Mm-hmm. The first time was under complicated circumstances. I was studying in Michigan, but due to a lot of factors, I ended up dropping out. And then that's where I moved to Switzerland, which is a weird consequence of dropping out of college. But, you know, hey, TCK life. Yeah. And then when I got the job in Florida and I was there and I was like, okay, obviously I can live here and it's okay, you know, but if I have the option, I prefer to live outside where I generally feel more comfortable. And yeah, it's been 11 years, almost 12.
No regrets?
So, nah, not really. Yeah. No. Sometimes I wonder, but I think that's also something you have to accept as a TCK. It's like you make your decisions, you move, and then you try not to think what if. You try to limit your what ifs. Yeah,
absolutely. So. No, I appreciate you saying that. And just for those that are watching and aren't quite sure of the terminology, TCK, Third Culture Kid. So, we'll get to that a little bit later, but let's talk about that then. Best and worst. Let's talk about the best and worst part of international or expat living. What's on your radar there? I'm curious to see what you have to say.
So one of the interesting things here in Poland is that all the Polish people are basically telling me it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. You know, Poland was a poor country. It's becoming richer. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Europe. Of course, since pandemic, it's a little more ambiguous, or especially with the war right now. But in general, it's a growing economy. So a lot of Polish people are being exposed to new things. There have been Polish people who moved around Europe and so on, but there's a lot who didn't. And a lot of them are taking English classes with me, for example. And the enduring tone of what they talk about is like, wow, can't even imagine, you know, when they look at a life like mine. And they say like that. And that's the thing that I think when you're surrounded by expat circles, international circles, you get sort of used to it and you take for granted, oh yeah, people moving around, their jobs taking them this place and that place. But then when you talk to people who are from these small towns in countries like Poland, and you go like, oh wow, yeah, for them it's just completely alien. I met a girl, first year student. She came to some international meetup thing, and sweetest person. And for her, she grew up speaking pretty decent English because she watched a lot of TV. And meeting me and another American friend, she was like, wow. Because for her, it was like movies and TV come to real life because she had never met an actual American in the flesh and blood before. Right. So like, that's one of the small things where you say like, okay, wow, you know, there's a privilege to this. So that's the good stuff. You get this exposure, you get the travel, you do become worldly, whether you want to or not. You know, you just get exposed to different things. You understand how people work. You know, and I think you understand also with yourself, like how to be flexible, how to move around, all these sort of practical things.
Oh, you become a professional acclimator, is the way I like to say it, right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, some people are talking about minimizing, Marie Kondoing their lives, and then I was just kind of like, well, it's necessity. I like to accumulate stuff, but then I know how to let it go. So, but the negatives, of course, are also kind of that it can be difficult and lonely, and And because for me, at least, I don't know about your experience, but for me, I'm very conscious of the fact that when you live in a different place and when you move away from a place, it's kind of gone, you know, and all you have are, for example, physical possessions and your memories that might remind you of the fact that you lived in another place. After a while that you move somewhere, you kind of acclimatize, you get used to it, and your life kind of takes its own rhythm of the place that you're living in, but it doesn't. But then you think to yourself like, wow, hang on a minute. I used to live somewhere very different.
Yeah.
Like how can I reconcile that? Somehow it works, but for me, I'm very conscious of the fact that I leave some places behind and it's not the same, you know, and you can't have those places back because the places, it's not just a time, it's just not a place, but a time as well. So
yeah, well, you can obviously go back. It's just not the same, like you said.
Yeah,
the people are
exactly.
gone. You know, the emotions are gone. You know, well, that's not true because you still have the emotions, right? You still have the emotions, but without
sometimes you
those
have the
same
people, but they grow and they change too. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Hong Kong, Taiwan. I mean, I've gone back to both and loved every minute of being back. And the memories just boom, they hit you slap in the face. But those same people that created those memories, most of them have moved on. Like you said, you know, it's a tough thing because you try to balance everything, and you always, you know, you hear the whole, you know, you can always go home, you can always do this. Well, that's not really necessarily an option for people like us, right? So
not really.
Yeah,
I'm pretty good at making new friends because I get to a new place. I make an active, you know, effort to make new friends. Right. And sometimes you make very good friends who are very nice and really care about you, and that's great. Yeah. But there's always an aspect of there's so much of your life that they just will not understand because they weren't there, you know. And as an adult, especially, you know, if you did this growing up as a kid, then you have your family who at least shared some of the experiences, maybe not the same perspectives, but the experiences. But then as an adult, you're mostly on your own, you know. And so no one's going to share that. Yeah, it's a difficult thing to bond with people over. You just have to be okay with it because no one's ever going to understand all this past of you. They don't have to, but there are days where you're like, no.
Well, I wish I could share
this thing with someone.
Yeah, and I think I did it as a kid and without, you know, subliminally knowing it, but even as an adult, because I've been like you, I've been back overseas as an adult. You perfect the art of saying goodbye, right? It's one of those things that's always constantly hanging over your head because you're right. Yeah. People come in, people come out, but you know, at the same time, I don't know if you feel this way, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything, right? It's still those connections you make. That's a lot of them are, I mean, lifelong. I've talked about this on the show many times. My deepest, I mean, I've got great friends everywhere. So this isn't throwing anybody under the bus and it's not pretentious by any means, but I still talk to the kids I grew up with in Taipei. Kids, we're all in our 40s now, right? They all have their own kids and half of their kids are in high school now. So it's not like we're necessarily kids, but those people, you can just pick up a phone, pick up right where you left off. No questions asked. They don't need to ask you where's home, all that stuff. And it's just, yeah, you're right. It can be easier. At the same time, it can be brutally painful getting used to saying goodbye. You kind of get that little bit of a guard set up. I don't know if you feel that way, but you kind of get a little bit guarded.
I do. I've noticed that as well here, where I've made new friends, and sometimes I wonder to myself, I'm like, am I being the best friend that I could be, or am I just being like, okay, well, you know, it's for now. We'll see if it lasts. Because I've also been
cautious. Is it a cautious thing? Yeah,
I guess it is because for example, I recently, a few years ago, I left Switzerland, and that was after about a 5-6 year stretch. And we kept in touch a little over time, over a couple of years, but in the last maybe year or so, it's kind of faded down. And this is not the first time that this has happened. Like you have friends that you're close to, but time, distance, different lives will take you in different directions. And you won't connect over so much anymore. Yeah. And that's normal. It still stings though, you know, it still sucks.
It's our normal, right? It's our normal. It's not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's normal for everybody, but it's definitely a TCK, you know, a TCK. No, I'm laughing with you, not at you, just because I totally understand it. Because
I had forgotten for a second.
It's kind of our new normal. And yet, it is what it is, and that's why I say we become master acclimators, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is, and it's not
And
necessarily easy, but the good ones stick around. The ones you really do bond with, you're going to be
or
lifelong.
sometimes people surprise you, to be honest, like someone you weren't that close with, but you have a reason to reconnect, and
Sure,
you reconnect. And some
sure.
people who you were very close to at the time, maybe you just are not online chat friends or
Yeah,
phone friends. You are in-person friends, and that's okay too. But it's the sort of
that's
thing where it always sucks a little bit because
yeah.
yeah, because
Do you
it
get
always
that?
sucks when people you value just kind of fade. What? Sorry.
Oh, absolutely. No, I want you to finish that. But I was going to say I tend to get. Don't tell my wife this; she already knows. But like I tend to get the 3-year itch. It's just because of the way I grew up. I was used to
Mm-hmm.
moving every kind of 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something about your circumstances right now? Do you get that itch, or how does that work?
Okay, so here's the thing.
Mhm.
I did not move around a lot growing up. Unlike a
Okay.
lot of other third culture kids, I
Yeah.
stayed in one place from when I was 4 till I was 18.
Okay.
I just had a lot of, I mean, being a Vietnamese-American in a British school
Yeah.
in Indonesia
Yeah.
carries its own complications. But I didn't move around as much as a kid. I have moved around as an adult way more.
Yeah. By
Way more.
choice, or I mean, was that your?
Oh, I don't even know.
It's a loaded question, right? It's a loaded question.
It's
So,
a mixed one because some of them were
yeah.
choice, were intentional, and some of them were less. So like, but yeah, on average, I think I moved every 2 to 3 years for the most part. The longest stretch was this last one in Switzerland, which was 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
And the thing was that I actually it did really start to feel like home because I built a good, strong social circle. I had family in there as well and
Right.
everything like that. It started to really feel like home, which is why it kind of sucked when I had to leave. But but these days, it feels like that was just the short break away from the moving life
Yeah.
because it was every couple of years, and then it was like boom, Switzerland for 5 or 6 years, and then now it's been every year or two now since then. And I'm in Poland now. I'm in my second, well, a little over second year, and I'm starting to feel it.
Got that
So
itch. No, I got that. No, totally.
yeah.
Is there anything you've learned the hard way? I mean, I got to ask this as a married man, just so my wife's, I know she
Hmm.
watches, but I've been in that single life, and there's
Hmm.
some tricky parts to it in the expat world. There's some great parts. I'm not going to sit here
Hmm.
and lie to you, but there's some tricky parts. How is the single life as an expat?
Uh, as an ex, okay, it's interesting. On it depends because it depends so much on where you are. So, for example, when I was in Switzerland, I had a hard time dating. To be
Mhm.
honest, nothing ever really seemed to work out. But then I didn't let it like slow me down. I was just kind of like, well, that's just live your best life, see who's around, and that attitude served me well when I went back to Asia. And then suddenly, I don't know. I think it was just the right kind of balance
Yeah,
because I was like foreign enough, but not too foreign for most people. So like local
it's a
Indonesians
great
or
way to put
Malaysians
it.
and so
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because for
no,
them, they'll like see me and they'll be like, okay, he's Asian. I get that.
yeah,
But oh, he's American, inverted commas, and then also from different places and stuff. So that makes
right,
me interesting. So that was nice. And
yeah,
then actually, after I got here to Poland, a friend in Switzerland, he asked me like, "Oh, hey, so in general, I found that it's people are looking for something exotic and different. That's why they're attracted to foreigners. And you're much more foreign in Poland than let's just
yeah,
say another European." And I'm
yeah,
like, might be too much, but it depends. It depends. You always have to
yeah.
just meet the right people. It's always interesting. And actually, do you mind me going on another tangent here?
Go for it, man. This is you. This is all about you. So you do you.
Okay.
So let's go.
So here in Poland, a lot of the local cultural traditions and things like that are to do with I don't know. People say like, oh, you have to try a Polish wedding at some point in your life. You have to attend one because it's fun. They play this version of Polish pop called disco polo, which is everybody hates until it's a wedding. Uh, there's always some uncle who's going to force you to drink lots and lots of vodka with him, and so on and so on. And it sounds like it's a fun time.
Yeah.
I've never been to one
Oh, yeah.
because while dating people, I was, I've dated a little bit here and there, but never got invited. Like, oh, hey, you have to come to someone in our family's getting married. You have to come
Right.
along. Never had that experience, and it's a little annoying, to be honest. Like,
Well, you can't
of all
leave till
the
you go to one. It sounds like then. Yeah.
maybe I need to check that one off the list.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
But you know, it's up there with cultural experiences that I feel oddly robbed of, just because I have never been close enough to someone to be invited to, I don't know, somebody's wedding. So
yeah. What about in again? I mean this respectfully. I hope you know that by now. But
of course,
as a Vietnamese-American, I have no idea. I've never been to Poland. I've been to Europe. I haven't been to that side of Europe. But
sure.
how is there a racism factor? I mean, how do you view that? Like, how does that? I'm just curious. I have no idea. This was a question that I just thought of as we were talking, but I just wondered how are you perceived, I guess?
It's an interesting one on multiple levels. So, like I mentioned before, Poland is a country that's relatively new to like globalizing.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
So people tell me all the time. For example, the city I live in now in Wrocław has changed so much in 10 years. You know, they have grown in a big IT sector that has been growing and growing, and then there's also like universities where Erasmus programs has become very popular. There's a lot of for example, Korean companies have set up here in the last 5 years and done very well for themselves. And there's a lot of Indian students who come here to study, do their masters and so on like that, and then go on to work in the IT sector usually, you know. And so you have a lot. It's globalizing quite quickly for a lot of Polish people, so it's quite new, you know. Yeah. Some of them, of course, are very keen and interested, but then some people, it's in general, it's just new, yeah. And so I've never had actual slurs or active I want to say active racism, but there's a lot of superficial stuff, you know, where people just don't know things. So for example, I don't know, I've gotten way more jokes here directed at me to do with eating dogs than I have had in the rest of my life combined.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's kids, you know, who are just kind of like, oh, do they eat dogs where you're from? And I'm like, well, it's a complicated question because in Vietnam, there are places you can go if you really want to, but it's not a common thing. So, but that nuance is kind of lost on people sometimes. And so in general, it's just kind of what I face here is that, and also that of the, there's a lot of Americans who are here. Interestingly, a lot of them have Polish or Eastern European, Central European heritage, and they're like Americans everywhere, I guess. They like to travel and try to discover their roots and their immigrant background, and so there's quite a few who've found their way back here, but I'm not one of them. But there's a lot of Vietnamese here because during the communist to the Soviet period, there were a lot of Vietnamese guest workers who came, and then in the 80s, and they settled. And so it's nice to meet them, but my Vietnamese sucks. So when I've had the experience where I've walked into a Vietnamese place, tried to order in Vietnamese, and then the guy would just look at me confused and ask in Polish, and I'll be like, "Oh no!" That's how bad.
Can we settle on English? Yeah, let's. It's pretty English friendly though there, isn't it? I would think,
depends on the city. In the cities, you're okay. In small towns, no. You're gonna struggle.
That's pretty.
It's gonna be Polish, maybe Russian, although that's less popular these days. But you know, the older generations might still speak Russian. But yeah, depends on where you are.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for those answers. I've never been on that side. I've definitely been to Europe. I just you talked about fulfilling your family roots and genetics and things like that. I'm an Irish kid, so it's I definitely been to Ireland. You know, that's one of my favorite places. But
you did that thing where it's like, oh, do you know someone from this family name somewhere?
Yeah,
100 years ago.
100%. I'm not even gonna try to lie to you. Yeah, it was, but it was fun. And have you been to Ireland?
Never. I've been invited many times.
Okay, you gotta go. It's this is the Irish tourism department can hit me up on this, but it's what a fun time, man. It's a good and it's not just about going to Dublin and having a pint and all that. It's just traveling around the country and good people. So. Okay, we're going to take a total shift right now, if that's cool with you. You know,
shift me into gear, my friend.
All right, cool. Ease up on the clutch, and then here we go. So it's one thing to be an expat. You're also a teacher, which I can relate to. I've done that and still doing it. But you're a comedian. How in the hell did that start? I want this story so bad. Since we talked on your podcast, I've always wanted to know the story. So if you don't mind, let's get into that. You are a comedian, so
it's a longer. Longer story or shorter?
We have plenty of time, man. I'm not going anywhere. So you do. You do what you need to do.
So the roots of this actually go back way back. Even in school, I liked doing some stage stuff. I had some good things. I had some bad ones. I had a terrible talent show where I froze on stage. That was embarrassing.
What were you doing? I'm just curious.
So I used to do improv
Okay.
in like early high school kind of time period. And then
Yeah.
a friend of mine who was super into stage, he said, "Oh, hey, there's a talent show today." He told me in the morning. And the
course.
other friend who I wanted to do it pulled out, but you were really funny at the improv night the other night. So do you want to do it? I said, okay. He had a Rowan Atkinson skit.
Okay.
I was like a little
Mr.
concerned.
Bean, right?
What, sorry?
Is that Rowan Atkins, Mr. Bean? Is that
Yes,
Mr. Bean?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
There you go. See?
And he even had the script on the table between us, just so I, in case, because it was a talent show. But that was this is the one that my sister saw, and she was not encouraged after seeing me freeze. Absolutely, it was terrible. But later in life, I discovered, especially once I went into hotel management, I discovered that I really hate college presentations for the most part. Group projects and presentations are terrible because most students do not care. They're just there for the grade, and the teacher doesn't care about your presentation skills. They just need to mark it off. And I thought I can make this much more entertaining. And that expanded as I went into the hotel industry. And I think this is I don't know if you've ever been in the service industry in general.
Not me personally, but I've definitely tipped well. So I respect that. So yeah,
thank you. But the point is there's something that you learn, when you work in service industries, especially, and I think especially in the hospitality industry, where you are trained to talk to people. And especially this is the benefit of my American work experience, which is also that you learn to talk to people in a way that's like, you want them to be welcome. You want them to be, feel like it's a hospitable place, like that. And also on a personal level, you want them to see you and be like, oh, this person is interesting, he's memorable. And these are skills that I picked up from working in hotels. And this is something that I expanded on when I moved back to Switzerland. And as a part-time job, I actually picked up tour guiding. So I was a free walking tour guide in Zurich. I still know it
awesome.
like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
And then I really enjoyed that public performance aspect of it, which is you take people around for like an hour and a half. You tell them fun facts about the city, you show them stuff, and you make some jokes. And I really enjoyed that, probably more than some of my colleagues at the time who were also tour guides. And then a friend of mine, he got into the Swiss-German comedy scene. I went to see one or two of his shows, and I thought, oh, this is pretty fun, but I wonder what there is in English. And so I went to an English stand-up night in Zurich. There were two guys there. One was fantastic. It was his first time on stage, and he was really good. And then there was another guy. It was his first time on stage, but he went out on a dare. And he basically talked for like 5-6 minutes about how he would smoke just about anything. And if you wanted to smoke with him during the break, he'd be down for it. It was like kind of funny, not funny. Oh, God, he's still talking about it. Oh my God, he's still talking. It became funny again. So I thought, wow, there's no barriers to entry. Anyone can go up there. So I got my start in Zurich in 2018 in the summer. Continued. I did a couple of open mic show things in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Continued with comedy in Jakarta in Indonesia while I was there. When I came to Poland, it was lockdown, so couldn't do much. But a lot of comedians went online to do online shows, see what they could do there. And I met a bunch of people through that, because it's funny. Suddenly, online comedy, you could just suddenly perform in Paris, in London, in New York, in
that's true. Huh?
So
I've also heard that's pretty damn hard, though. Like,
it's not.
You're not getting the interaction, the feedback, right?
It's not the same. It is not the same at all. But did make contact, so it's nice. If I ever decide to go on tour, I know people. So, but yeah, ever since I moved away from Radom, which is the smaller town, to Wrocław, there is an actual English comedy scene here, and it's been going pretty well, I think, overall.
So, how often do you do it? Is it weekly, or what's the?
There is a weekly open mic on Mondays from Worldwide Comedy. That's the comedy scene here, at least officially. And then there's a few other couple different shows, this and that. And I've been trying to organize stuff for them as well. So a lot of the regular guys, they organize more sort of traditional stand-up nights. but I've been trying to push them to do like roast battles and things like that. Do stuff that's a little more challenging, a little different.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I hope is happening. We have a roast battle in a week, so
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to hopefully pursue full time, or is that just kind of on the side, or what's the plan with that?
It's on the side for now, but I was recently inspired in a sense because I met a comedian he's American, but he's based in Warsaw, and he only started like a year ago.
Oh wow!
He's doing musical comedy, and he's been touring around Poland, and he's been promoting that himself, and apparently doing okay. And I thought, oh wow, I've been doing this for 4 years. Like maybe I should just put some money out there and promote stuff and organize some shows or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for right now, it's more of a side thing. So
yeah. That's impressive. I couldn't do it. I definitely like, I have no problem with the camera. I have no problem with all that stuff. But yeah, like on the spot, people staring at you, that's a whole different. I admire you guys, man. That's
it's you have to turn that around. It's like that's not the thing that makes you nervous. That's the thing that gives you power.
That's true. No, that's a great way to put it. What about? And we're going to turn again. I'm going to shift gear, and I appreciate you opening up about that. But
no problem.
One of the things I'm trying to do, and you and I talked about this before we started recording, but one of the things I'm trying to do more and more with this show is give a voice to us guys who are expats, specifically related to the mental health capacity and things that, we're supposed to just roll with. Guys aren't supposed to be, vocal about these things. We're supposed to just kind of roll with things and deal with things in our own way. And sometimes we do. Sometimes our way of dealing is self-medicating and doing things that maybe we shouldn't have done. But what about any struggles since you've been an expat? Any struggles professionally or personally, or just in the mental health aspect of things?
Oh, okay. That's actually very broad now.
Yeah. If you don't, I'm opening it up because I don't want to I don't want to pigeonhole you into one specific corner. I just want to, you're a guy that's done this, and you've been in the expat world, even though, as a kid, you said you hadn't moved a lot, but you still were in that world. Right. So I'm just curious, like from your perspective, have there been professionally, personally, what's your take on all that?
All right, let's start with professionally.
Okay. Yeah.
So I didn't expand on this before, but when I dropped out from studying in Michigan, that was a very defining aspect of life, because most of the time people expect like, oh, you come from a reasonably well off middle class-ish family, and you're going to go to university and you're going to get your degree and you're going to do well,
Were you in Ann Arbor, by the way?
I was in Ann Arbor, yeah.
That's right. Okay.
U of M, yeah. Beautiful campus, beautiful town. Met some of the nicest people there. I just didn't. There were so many things I was not prepared for, as it turns out. I wasn't prepared for living in America. I wasn't at all, because we would go back to visit family, but we would go back to visit our Vietnamese-American family,
Yeah.
And it actually became a bit of an embarrassment. Like a friend of mine from school, he actually came to visit once with our family in the U.S., and he barely had any of the typical American experiences because he was so much with our Vietnamese family. So it was one of those things where I was not very exposed to just how America was. We would go back, but I had no idea until I was there and I was alone. And all my friends from my British school that I grew up in, they all went to Australia, the UK, Canada, maybe, and I was felt very far away, very alone, and also suddenly placed with the responsibility of, okay, now figure out your university, my life. And so I didn't do very well there in a lot of ways. I had an identity crisis to do with some people were asking hang on, where are you from? And I was like, oh shit, maybe I don't know, things like this. All this stuff was all there. So that didn't go well. I was supposed to go into political science. That was the original dream because it was my passion. It didn't work out. Ended up with hotel management, Then I worked a couple of years in a hotel in Florida, which was a very also interesting experience. And there are aspects of it that I still miss to this day, but still, I looked at my bosses and I looked at overall the career and I thought, is this really what I want? Not really, And okay, so what if you change jobs? What if you change locations? Well, if you're going to change jobs and change locations, you might as well just leave the country. That was kind of my logic at the time. Might as well just go.
Yeah.
And so I did. And because I was realizing that so many people, especially when not just in the States, but that's from my experience. I think of Americans first. They get so locked into, well, okay, you got your car, you got your job. Now it's time to buy your house and have your car and save for the kids' college fund and all this stuff. And I was kind of like, nah, these aren't really my priorities. I want to get back out there. So why wait? So I did. But then it's been it hasn't always been easy, in general, because I think I've tried my best just to live my life on my terms. And that has not always been in a case where I was always financially stable. It hasn't been in a situation where I was always like sure with what I was going to do. And so there've been ups and downs. But the thing in the end is that I'm still doing it and I'm still out here, and I don't feel like I've compromised much,
That's awesome, man. Yeah.
And I think that's good. And I think so many people are afraid of this. They're afraid to leave, because they're like, oh no, like, what if this, what if that? It's like most of the time you can deal with it, and especially if you come from a country with a good passport, like an American passport, you have so many more privileges over other people to move around. Why not use it? Yeah. So, and especially if you have an international background and you are capable of doing this, you have the skills, you have the experience. It's a lot.
How'd your family take your decisions?
Well, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Because we kind of had two halves of our family, right? We have the family that stayed in the U.S., on both sides of my family, and then we have my parents and my sister, who are none of whom are living in the U.S. So it's actually. My parents, they were kind of like, yeah, okay, it doesn't sound like you're earning that much money for how much you're working, so might as well come back out here. And I was like, okay. My sister is also, she's a little less America-phobic than I am, if I can call it that, because she's moved back and forth a lot more than I have. She's the successful one. She's a professor of mathematics. And so because of an academic career, she's had to move around also a few countries. So she's also lived in Israel and North Carolina and New York City, and now she's in London. So, but yeah, we're the weird ones from both sides of our family. So all the rest.
Yeah, but I'm going to stop you. I want to stop you real quick because I hear you when you say you talk about your sister, and that's true. I mean, to a lot of people, she's definitely a successful one, but you're living your life on your terms, and how many people can say that, right? So that's a whole different side of success. So,
I wasn't gonna put this on record, but whatever. I usually introduce it and say like, oh, she's the successful one, but I'm more fun.
Well, there you go, right? Yeah. No, I appreciate that. What about on the personal side then? Like, what about the mental health side of things on the personal side?
Yeah, so this professional stuff has also been kind of difficult, because what I've ended up having is not that much in the way of like your normal academic credentials. I have a degree in hotel management, but I'm not working in hotels. I'm not working in business. I have, ever since I moved to Indonesia, again, like a few years ago, I got my English teaching degree, but that's good for English teaching and not a lot else. And that was okay when you're in a country like in Indonesia, where it's quite common for companies to sponsor you and say, hey, just come here. We'll figure it. We'll sort everything out visa-wise, work permits-wise, all that stuff. We'll just handle it. And here in Europe, that's not really the case unless you're in like higher companies, But if you're an English teacher, you come in like another immigrant person, and you have to deal with all this immigration stuff yourself. And that has been stressful here in Poland for me, because it's been a bad combination of multiple things, like not combining well. Anyway, so the point being that I've had to deal with a lot of Polish bureaucracy pretty much by myself. And in the past year, I've been relearning as well that it's hard. Bureaucracy in general is hard. And I've had to hire an accountant and a lawyer, both of which were not cheap. It's not like I earn that much money here, all these things. There's and it just kind of hits me sometimes, especially when I'm having to deal with these problems, and I feel like I'm dealing with it alone. And it's kind of hard for me to ask for help. And this is coming back to what you were talking about before, and I think this is just part of how I grew up. My parents, they would always say like, you can't ask for help, but I didn't feel like I could. And maybe that was intentional, unintentional.
Did you say can or can't? Sorry.
I felt like I can't.
Okay, gotcha.
I felt like I could never bring them bad news. And whether this is justified or not, or intentional on there, who knows? But like, it's complicated, I'm sure. But the point being that I grew up feeling like I had to be able to deal with stuff by myself. And that was a problem when I was in Michigan, because I felt like I can't talk to my parents about the issues that I was having when I was there. I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to about this. And it was the same also numerous times, where I felt like, okay, who can I ask for help? It's a burden to ask for, and I don't want to feel like I can't handle it,
Right.
And then when you're even more alone when you're far away from family or close friends or things like that in a country where you don't speak the language, it's a problem, especially with Polish bureaucracy. They don't speak English here. They don't even speak other languages. I tried.
Yeah.
Like the social insurance office, they called me and I like got enough Polish to be like, okay, yeah, that's my phone number. That's my name. Okay. What do you need? And it's just like, da, 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 da. I'm like, I don't speak Polish. It's like, okay. I was like, do you speak German, English, French, Spanish, any of these? Nothing. So.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because I can relate to that. I mean, on so many angles looking in, right? It's for many people that are looking at your life, they're thinking, dude's living his best life, right? He's doing what he's doing. And I get that, because I got the same thing when I was overseas, as an adult. And to an extent you are. Like there's no way around it. There's definitely perks with, living the expat life. However, there's nowhere to turn. You're right. There's not a whole lot to turn to when you are having those moments. I mean, you're still human at the end of the day, and that it's a collective. I don't know how to really say this, but yeah, when shit hits a fan, there's nowhere for you to turn. You're on your own, right? And it's such a complicated, because you're supposed to put up this front that everything's going great, but you're still human. Combine that with living in a different country where the language is, a barrier, everything else is a barrier. Yeah, man, I get it. So I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah.
Like other Americans here, they also share their problems with dealing with the immigration offices here, and it feels like something that everyone's dealing with on their own. And I feel like, okay, well, if they can do it, then that means I can do it too. And, but that can be a problem in a sense, because you're also like, wait, what if I don't really know what I'm doing?
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's easy. Yeah. No. Just because somebody else is doing it, and they may put up a front like it's no big deal. But yeah, little things like that are truly a big thing. They don't maybe seem the biggest issue. And a lot of people back here, maybe in the States and around the world, might not even relate to that. But yeah, I mean, there's I'm not going to lie to you. You know this too. I mean, there's definitely perks. There's definitely privileges and all that.
Yeah,
living that
they
life.
Definitely are. It's the little things like even just this afternoon, like I went to a meetup and to meet a friend, and then also just it's one of those international meetup things, because it's becoming cool here as well, because it's getting so international, and you meet people from everywhere, Yeah. And like I said, I had never planned on coming to Poland, but since I got here, I got exposed to a whole other region of the world that I never would have expected to, didn't really plan to. But I meet so many people from Azerbaijan, from Estonia, from a lot of the other Eastern European countries in general, where I was just kind of like, okay, and products and things and lifestyles and traditions and cultures and all this stuff. And it's been wonderful, because it's not something I would have chosen for myself, but it's kind of nice that I didn't have to. I ended up here and I was like, okay, let's be open-minded and just discover. I share my apartment with one other guy, and I got a new roommate maybe about a month ago, and he's Ukrainian, and he had
talk about things being in perspective right now, right? Yeah.
Oh, well, that too, but
go ahead.
But no, it was an interesting experience, because he speaks Ukrainian, Russian, and Polish, and I speak my languages, but I don't really count Polish, and we kind of still get along anyway. And on the first day after he moved in, he made soup, borscht, and his Ukrainian style. He got it the traditional sort of Ukrainian way. And then he put down a couple of shots of vodka with a bottle, and he's like, okay, this is to our new friendship.
That's awesome.
And I thought that's the most Slavic experience I could have ever had.
Did he use red beets for that?
No, that's more the
different soup. I think that's something else.
I think that's another kind of borscht. It's not the kind that he was making, but yeah, it's still
either way. That's awesome, man.
Really enjoyable experience. Yeah. And
look,
overall,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Not just overall, wouldn't have had this if I chose something else. So just making the most of it.
That's what I was alluding to. It's just that at the end of the day, we're all human, man. It's we may view things a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, we all want the same wants. And I love the culture aspect of that, and just putting the shots down in vodka. Here's to our new friendship, man. That's awesome. I love that. I think so many of the global issues would be settled so much easier if people could just do it that way, right? Put some vodka down, put some whiskey down. Cheers. Let's talk it out. Yeah, let's get some food. Let's talk it out.
Yeah,
I love that.
The best thing, in general, just like overall the experience is just learning something new, becoming familiar with another culture, lifestyles, all that stuff. So yeah, it's the best.
Well, yeah, and to recap that, if I'm putting words in your mouth, let me know. But I just think that from the mental health standpoint too, it's just finding that avenue, no matter what it is or who it's with, to kind of be able to voice your struggles and voice your not so good times. It's an important thing, especially with us guys, because we do wear masks, right? We're supposed to just, no matter what culture you're from, it seems like being a guy, you're just supposed to kind of sugarcoat things and everything's great. Don't worry about it. Yeah, pretending you can handle it no matter where you're at, no matter what your age is. It's kind of how we're all raised, and breaking that stigma is huge, man.
Yeah. It's tough, especially if you come from a sort of achievement-oriented family, And so then you even if they never actually make you feel bad for not achieving things, you still feel like you have to, And I think that's tough sometimes. I think the pressure can be there, And something I feel like, and this is sort of a contrast. I feel like hitting a roadblock early on in my life in terms of life plans and stuff like that, like by dropping out of college and stuff, that taught me very early on that, bad thing, like you can hit these like tough situations in your life, and then life keeps on going. And then you can just make with that whatever you want to. You don't have to let this like weigh you down or whatever. I've lived a pretty cool, interesting life, and sure, I could have had a more traditional career, maybe if I had stuck with it, or if things had gone right, whatever. But maybe not, So it's
which gets me back to my statement of success, right? Everybody's different, to each their own. What success is to one person like yourself. I mean, I'm looking at you going, dude's living I'm jealous, man. So like I'm sitting here going like that's pretty cool, and success is
you're welcome over anytime.
Yeah. Give me
US dollar's doing pretty well compared to the Polish currency right now.
That's
so
true.
It's a good time to come visit.
Yeah, definitely. Put me in front of a karaoke machine, throw me some shots of whiskey, and we'll be good. I don't know about the comedy, the stand-up comedy thing, but
we'll get vodka here, and yes, karaoke's a thing. So yeah,
I can handle my own on the karaoke stage, but I don't know about like I said, I don't know about the comedy stage. So.
You don't have to.
Okay, what? Continuing on here, what kind of message for young adults or adults in general would you give in terms of those that are contemplating maybe an international move?
Okay, so there are two ways to move internationally, and the easiest way is to have a sponsor, and you work for a company, and then they're going to move you abroad, or maybe even you're going to get hired from abroad. That is the easiest way to do it. It's so much better, but it's still doable without it. And I think that's my way to prove that. Like you can study abroad for one, if you're a student, do not be afraid to do that. Do not be afraid to study at a different university. So for example, American universities are very prestigious. They're also extremely expensive. And you can study somewhere else if you want to. There are options here in Europe or elsewhere, also in Asia, for example. Maybe not as prestigious, but depends on what you want to do with your life, Are you aiming for the top levels of everything in life? Maybe you don't have to. I don't know. I'm just saying to be open-minded. And it depends on what field you're going to get into, what kind of companies. So many people change their careers as well. So it's just one of those things where I just want to tell people, like, do not be afraid to take a risk or to not optimize your life as much as you have to. If you do decide to move like I did, just kind of, I'm just going to go and do it. It helps to be prepared. And I don't know, here's the problem. I don't know how much I just take for granted in terms of well, obviously I have to do this and sort this out, before I go or once I get there, things like that. These are the things I need to do. I think it's not as obvious for other people sometimes when they make those moves, the things that they have to prioritize, but in general, I'd say can be kind of forgiving in this regard, like, yeah, you'll make a few mistakes, but it's okay. You'll have some inconveniences, but you'll get past it. It's worth it in the end, I think. So either way, like, there's nothing quite like changing your perspective, and getting the opportunity to work in a new place or to try to live in a new place, try new things, make new friends, And I love, personally, I am very at home in international environments, and that's a lot easier somehow when you get outside of your home country.
Yeah.
And then you're forced to live in a new place. And yeah, you'll make some local friends probably, but the best thing for a lot of foreigners to do is to just bond together over being foreign in another country. And that's a great way to, bond over that. And you'll still meet people from a lot of places, so.
Oh, no doubt. And I'm sitting here going, you don't have to twist my arm, man. I'm on your side. And you brought up a good point, because a lot of the people I've had on here, they had a connection to either an international school, or they were business brats, or, their husbands or wives moved over. They were trailing spouses. I know that's not the term we're supposed to use anymore. And don't tell Sunday Bean, because she'll yell at me. But no, she won't yell. She's great. But yeah, I mean, it's just, but there are those perspectives of, yeah, there's other ways. You don't have to be connected to necessarily a huge organization or school or things like that. And you're living proof of that, man. You're doing your thing. So that's awesome.
All right. I'll tell you the visa story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
That got complicated. So just to bring us back, I got my job offer to come to Poland, and I was in Indonesia in lockdown. And I got the offer, and I was like, great. And I emailed the Polish embassy in Jakarta to be like, hey, can I get a work permit to go to Poland? I got this job offer. And they said, ooh, well, here's the thing. Your work permit technically expired, and you've been here on an emergency stay permit. That's what Indonesia's offered for the pandemic. Okay. But we are legally not allowed to give you a work permit unless you are a resident nearby, So I could not go to a Polish embassy anywhere except for where I'm resident, And I was like, guys, if there's a pandemic, and do you mean Texas, that I would have to go back to Texas in July 2020 to get a visa? Are you serious? And they're like, that's how it is. And I was like, oh, okay. And I emailed the consulate in Texas, in Houston. And I was like, can we do this remotely? There's a pandemic, They said, no, you have to come in person. I was like, really, guys?
No way.
And that got it pretty depressing at some point, because I was very much like, oh no, is this all following through? And a few weeks later, my boss in Poland was like, hey, so this other girl we hired, she had the same problem that you did coming from South Africa, but she just tried the border. And they let her in. So you want to give that a try? And I was like, well, I think I better than nothing. So I tried it. I flew to Amsterdam. I got to the Schengen border. The border control guy, he looked at my paperwork that I gave him. He was like, okay, so did they tell you what you're supposed to do with this? They said, and I said, no. They said, just give it to you. He said, okay, stamp, let me in.
Wow. That's a lot less of a flight to Texas. Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Really?
It's a lot more direct. Yeah. And then I had to do the residency application process internally. And that would be different, because Poland offers a teacher's visa, which is quite friendly, because they want more English teachers to come here and they want to make it easy. But you could, like I said, you can only do that from the embassy or the consulate that's closest to you, where you're legally resident. And then, but then I'm still in the process. This is the ridiculous part. I'm still in the process of getting my residence permit, because I had to apply, domestically. Yeah. So, and from many people's stories, I'm not alone here. Some people have waited 4 or 5 years to get their residence permit, which sounds ridiculous. So, yeah.
Because it's already been 2, right?
It's been 2. There've been some ups and downs, some complications, but basically, yeah. Hopefully sometime in the next few months, but we'll see. Who knows? It got a lot more complicated with all the Ukrainian refugees who come in. So it slowed down the process quite a lot. But what are you going to do?
Well, man, we're go ahead.
Basically, just to cap this off, it's definitely doable. You might end up with a ridiculous story like mine.
It's great. I love stories. Yeah.
But
that's
you
crazy.
can still do it. That's the thing. So
yeah. No, I appreciate the honesty, and that's right. Yeah, there's always a way. If you can have the patience, I guess, and figure out alternative ways even, but there's always a way. So I agree with you 100%. So I was fortunate. I mean, as a kid, we were with my dad's company, things like that. But then when I went overseas, I was with an international school as an adult. So I never had to really experience that. They took care of everything, which was, again, #spoiled, right? So
it is better. It is better.
It's a lot easier. Yeah. But that said, there is a way, even if you're not with a big company, even if you're not with a big school, things like that. So we're getting close to the hour mark, and I want to make sure I talk about this. I know before we went live, you said you're not doing your podcast right now, but you also said that there's some episodes out there still that people can get to. Plug everything, man. Plug your social media, plug your podcast.
The podcast that you were on as well is still live on Spotify and on Anchor, which is where we hosted it, and everywhere that they distribute. It's called Third Culture Talks. And it was specifically to do with 2 TCKs and just kind of having fun, chatting, meeting new people, and we all enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. We kind of stopped about a year ago, just because both of our lives got busy. So as hosts, but we had a couple of episodes that are still pending. We recorded them with a couple of guests, and then we never ended up finishing editing because life got busy, and I feel a little ashamed about it, but they're going to come out sometime, so they'll still be there. And I'm generally hoping to get back into podcasting. I don't know when, but I really enjoyed it in general, so it's something that I would still be down for.
You guys, it was great. It was a great experience I had. I mean, I haven't laughed that hard on a podcast, man. You guys just never stopped. It was super fun, but no, it was definitely fun, but relative to people like us that and even people not like us, just people that enjoy different cultures and traveling and things like that.
I've had people here who listened to the podcast and went like, "Oh, that's really interesting." All these basically stories that of a lifestyle that they just had not imagined before. So
no, it was a good time. But what about social media? Where can people find you?
You can find me. Well, I technically have 4 Instagrams.
Oh, there you go.
So one is my personal one. It's dbnguyen85. It's private. You'd have to request. So if I don't know you, But I have a comedy one. That's Uncle Dan Comedy. That's where I post some of my comedy stuff. And then there's also our podcast Instagram, which is technically not very active, but it's still there as Third Culture Tea. Tea, like just the letter, not the drink. And and then there's the other one, which is just the local comedy scene here. I just help them with their social media, so it's not really mine. But Uncle Dan Comedy is the easy one to get to. If you want to write to me, I still respond there. So
you will. I can vouch for that. So that's a good thing, man. Well, listen, man, we're up on the hour, so I want to thank you for doing this. Thank you for number one, just being real. It's good to come across real people, man. I hope people in Poland check you out and watch your comedy and do the things that they should. So, I mean, I admire what you're doing. And like I said, success is, to different people, success means different things. And I'm looking at you going, man, you're doing you. And that's impressive, man. So just keep it up. So,
and I appreciate that you can look at a face and a box on a screen and say, I like meeting real people.
Absolutely. Right. Because we've never technically met, but this is 2 conversations now, or 3. I mean, if you technically, if you count all of our email exchanges, but no, I appreciate it, man. And weird as it sounds, but yet it's normal to us. Yeah, I consider you a friend now, man. We've had enough conversations, and I look forward to one day actually meeting you in person. But
you can reach out to me, and you have a home anywhere I live. So
awesome, same thing. If you ever want to come back stateside, you've got a place here too. I mean, my goal is to get back overseas, where maybe we can talk you into coming stateside. So, but anyway, I just want to thank you for doing this. Thank you for being real. Thank you for being transparent and vulnerable, especially with the mental health talk. It's an important thing, and I appreciate that. So with that said, thank you all for watching. This has been BenThere, episode 5 of season 3, and don't forget to make sure you check this out on YouTube, the BenThere channel, and subscribe. So Daniel.
I'm sure you have also been there like I have now.
There you go. Yeah, I like it. I like it. So, all right, buddy. Thank you so much. And stick around. I'm going to end this now, but we'll talk to you soon. Okay. Thank you, brother.
All right.